Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Meta Talk Show. And in studio, as per usual, I have Gilbert.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm lekker.
I'm good.
Cool. I want to talk about specifically budgets. I think the one question we get all the time, is how much should I spend on Facebook? I know that question is literally how long is a piece of string, because there's so many things that we have to consider to give people the best advice. So can we unpack maybe where someone should start with planning their budgets for Facebook? You know, what's the minimum requirement and why? I mean, that's maybe a good place to start, number one. Number two, you know, if you want to test, again, what is the minimum requirement necessary to test? And to scale, if you wanted to improve your results from everything is working, now I just need to spend more to get more results, you know, how would you go about allocating budgets to the growth as well? Because I know there's companies sitting there going, well, I've got, let's say, 5 to 10 grand a month that I am happy to invest. You know, how much should I be spending on Facebook? I ideally want to say all of it, but it's how do we start with a limited amount of money, and how do we justify whether it's worth spending more, and if we're happy to spend more, how much more do we actually spend?
Mm-hmm. So on a minimum budget, you can run an ad for 20 rand a day, and 20 rand will allow you to get a certain audience size and reaching at least a certain audience size. So that's a minimum, but that minimum, the chances of seeing conversion results is also very minimal. It can work well if you're just running traffic ads, you know, because the cost to get traffic to the site is much less than the cost.
Yeah, getting traffic is cheap.
Yeah, so that can work, $20, no problem. When it comes to looking at the budgets I need, and I'm going to, considering I'm going to have to test a couple of things before I then consider how much more I need to start growing and scaling, I always usually recommend minimum anywhere between at least 60, 70 rand, at least minimum, to start running a testing budget for a specific ad set. So you could have maybe $60, one ad set, or maybe 4 ad sets. So 4 ad sets, $60 each, and that's enough to test. It's the results from that are going to be dependent on other factors, and you may find yourself maybe getting 1 conversion, maybe 2 conversions, or maybe none. But what's important is that you have a budget that you can leverage to test smaller budgets, so that you don't find yourself throwing 1,000 rand down the drain every day, because you're also not monitoring your campaigns as effectively. I would say testing with smaller budgets is probably advisable, because the moment you start spending a lot of more behind campaigns, it's this odd thing, I don't know what to call it, but we found that sometimes the smaller budgets, so smaller is relative, like 100 rand versus 1,000 rand, right? Sometimes the smaller budgets actually perform much better than a budget at 1,000 in terms of, and again, this is dependent on what you see as performance. So a return on ad spend of 5x is maybe good for you, but for somebody else, the return of 8x is actually what's good for them. And then, it goes into profitability and so forth. But what I'm trying to say is 100 rand daily budget could actually get you an 8x ROAS. And 1,000 rand budget could actually get you a 5x ROAS.
Yeah.
Right? And it's almost as if at a bigger budget, Facebook knows that it has bigger budgets, and because it has more room to play around with, it forces itself to do so, and it does so at any given cost to get you the sale.
Yeah.
But at 100 Rand, you're saying to Facebook, look, this is all I have. Please be careful with it.
Yes.
But at 100 Rand, regardless, Facebook needs to get you results, because this is what it's built on. It's built on the fact that, hey, if you run Facebook ads, you can get results. And it shouldn't be discriminating between somebody who's spending 100 Rand versus someone who's spending 1,000 Rand, because as a business, you want more customers. So I want to make it as attractive to somebody who only has 100 Rand, and I want to make it fairly attractive to somebody who has bigger budgets at 1,000 Rand. So it's almost as if it's still imperative for Facebook and its algorithm to get results, even if I do have a smaller budget. And it can do so, and it will do so well enough. The only problem with the smaller budgets at 100 Rand, 80 Rand, is when you're trying to scale, and let's say you want to scale at an accelerated rate, it becomes much harder to start at a very low base. So if you're starting at 100 Rand, right, versus starting at 500 Rand, and at 100 Rand you're doing 2 sales a day, but at 500 Rand you're doing, let's say, double that, right? And they're both performing, but now you want to scale. You want to be like, okay, I want to double up the conversions. You can't double up your budgets. It doesn't work like that. You can actually only do maybe 20-30% at a time, 20-30% every 3 to 4 days.
Let's just explain why that is, though.
Sorry?
Let's explain.
Yes, I'll explain now. But what I'm saying is, you can't just double your budgets and scale in that way. So the reason why you would have to do it at increments, smaller increments, is because it throws off the algorithm. What happens is, at 100 Rand, it's comfortable getting you 2 conversions at $50 each. Sometimes maybe it's even, a little bit less, but it's monitored itself well enough to kind of like stabilize at that rate. Now, the moment you go from 100 to 200, what happens is Facebook now needs to go and start figuring out, how do I still get the similar results from a cost point of view, but at a much higher budget? Because at a much higher budget, it's expanding audience sizes. Every audience size will have a percentage that isn't as high converting.
I'm with you.
All right. So what's happening is, argument's sake, let's say every audience size is like 20%. All right.
Of people that would convert.
Yes. Now, and then there's 80% that don't. But at 100 Rand, that 80% at 200 Rand is more. So what happens is, Facebook is going to also be because it's going to be attracting non-converters that just don't convert as well as they should.
And you're forcing Facebook to reach those people.
Yes. It's actually going to have to learn to establish a new stable cost per acquisition and a new stable purchase conversion happening on a daily basis. Because now it's gone from the 100 to 200. It's not the same audience size. It's not the same dynamics as you would typically just think, oh yeah, just give it more money and it'll still get me the same CPA. It doesn't work like that. So it's relearning, so that now it establishes a new normal for you. And it goes it can go up and down like this, because it's trying to now establish this gap between 100 and 200 and where it can stabilize again. But if you increase by, say, 20% at a time instead of double, what will happen is the 20% doesn't force it to learn too much at one given go, at one time. It only needs to learn 20% better. It needs to learn 20% more. It doesn't need to learn 100% more.
I'm with you.
It needs to only learn 20% more. That's a lot more digestible and easier for it to do. And so it doesn't affect the system, the algorithm as we call it, too much. In some cases, you won't even really see much of an effect. You'll just actually, if your product is the product that people want, and it's in hitting the right audience at the right time, you should actually see those conversions slowly start increasing. So,
is it safe to assume? Sorry to interrupt you. Is it safe to assume that, to some extent, you should also pay attention to your audience size, because there's only so much room to scale if the audience size is a specific amount. So you said in an earlier episode that you need about 1 million people in your audience size to really leverage the algorithm effectively. We also explained why that is. So if you're scaling and you're putting more budget behind the campaigns that are actually making you money or generating the leads at a good cost for your business, then you also need to understand, like, you can't just infinitely put more money into it, because at some point you're going to reach a cap in terms of how many people, one, is likely to convert, and we established, let's say that's 20% hypothetically. But then two, also, that can diminish quite quickly if your audience size is not in 1 million, but let's say only 500,000. You can't scale that. And you're just going to force Facebook to spend more money, but you're not giving it the breathing room in order to leverage and make strategic decisions, for the money that you're giving it.
Exactly. There's an inflection point where you would keep on adding budget, but at some point you realize that the more budget you add to it, the results go in the opposite direction. And what I say is, actually, one of the first goals is to find out where that inflection point is happening, because that will tell you that after this point, you can't add more money, okay, because you're not going to get any more results. What actually that's indicating to you is that you need to work on something else, and that's got to do with your ads. Because those ads that you've been scaling have gotten to the point where they can't go any further with the budget that you're giving it. Now you need to look at those ads and make those ads better if you want to generate more juice out of that particular ad set. Go and change your offer, make a better offer. Go and change your creatives, make better creatives. Those will have an impact. And potentially, if they're good enough, you could actually see more sales come through from that ad set.
Yeah,
so,
as opposed to the 20% that's likely to convert. Yes. Maybe now it's 30 because the offer is just that damn good.
Yeah. And so it's basically a case where step one in launching ad sets and testing out my different audiences is to establish where I'm getting a return on ad spend that I'm happy with as a business because it makes sense. And once I've established that winning campaign or two winning campaigns, I then take my full testing budget and redirect it to spending on my winning ad set, but I can only increase incrementally by 20 to maybe 30% every 3 to 4 days at a time without affecting the algorithm too much that it goes back into a massive learning phase. And you don't want to go there because that's the pits of hell, lack of a better word. And once I've got a nice rhythm where I'm increasing 20%, 30%, and I'm still seeing relatively stable results and the conversions are going up steadily, there will be a point where maybe at 1,000 Rand, if I add any more, all I'm seeing is the campaign drop. At that point, I can look at that and say, I need to look at my ads and how I can better my ads at this point to get truly the maximum juice out of that ad set. If you go and change and optimize all your ads with better offers, better creatives, better copy, and you don't get any more sales, then
Move on.
On to the next.
Keep it there, or
Keep it there.
Keep the campaign there as long as it's driving the results.
Yes.
That makes sense profitability wise, and then jump onto another audience.
That's it.
Go test another ad set.
And rinse and repeat all the time.
Love it. So there's a lot to take away. So let's just summarize it for those watching and listening. Minimum amount of money that you can spend on Facebook is as little as 20 Rand a day. But with a little amount of money comes a little amount of probability of you seeing success as well. And you can get traffic, but you're most likely not going to get the sales, because on average, it costs anything between as little as 50 Rand, most likely, depending on what you're selling, to as high as sometimes 500 Rand a sale. So, and this is now from an e-commerce perspective. From a lead gen perspective, you can get leads as cheap as 5 Rand. Not sure if that's going to be always the best quality of leads, obviously. But it can go as high as 200-300 Rand a lead, if not more. So that's very ballpark rough estimates. So if you're spending 20 Rand a day, then it's going to take you potentially 6 days to get a sale. And that sale, if you get that sale, it's taken you 7 days to learn whether the ad is actually working or not. You can't make a decision on one sale, on one purchase on your campaign. So you can start making proper decisions after like 4 or 5 purchases and determine, is this profitable or not? So it's going to take you a month and a half, if not more, to determine if the campaign that you're running is actually worth continuing running or not. So people are short-sighted in the results because they're going to spend 20, 30 Rand a day on their campaigns. After 4 days, if they haven't seen their business double, they're going to turn off that campaign and think Facebook's not working. But meanwhile, you haven't given Facebook enough to work with in order to generate results for you. And even if you give it enough to work with, which is, as you say, a healthy budget would be 60 Rand or up to between 60 and 100 Rand a day as a testing mechanism, then it's no guarantee that is going to work. That's just feeding the algorithm with enough information. You're giving the algorithm, you're paying enough money to run the algorithm, and the algorithm hopefully has a big enough audience to actually start learning and finding the best people for your product or service. But it doesn't mean that there's going to be sales. So you then need to understand, cool, that's not working. Now I need to test something else. That's why we test 2 or 3 things at the same time. So now if you're spending $100 a day on an ad set, and if you want to test 2 or 3 things at the same time as of speed, then you're going to be after spending 300 to 400 Rand a day. So that means that you need around 10 grand a month to really move the needle for your business, where you can find the balance between learning and generating some sales. So is it safe to assume, we do tell most of our clients who want to work with us, we do tell them that a minimum amount of 10 grand is necessary. And anything less than that, we can't guarantee growth, but we can guarantee data. And with that data, we can guarantee, I would say, takeaways that we can use to grow the business. But you need about, let's say, 10 grand a month to really find the balance between seeing an impact in the business and also learning enough to improve that moving forward.
The thing about the budgets as well is what we maybe not we don't always look at, or there's just sometimes we overlook it, and it's about understanding that scenario. If it is costing you 100 Rand a day to get a sale, after 7 days you've spent $700. You may have maybe more than 7 sales if it's improved the CPA. Maybe some days are just better than others, but the reality is you're not going to get any more than probably 10 or 11 in a given week. Now, given that the algorithm feeds off of frequency, so the number of times that conversion event is happening, and
Because every conversion event is a data point,
Yes.
like in itself. It's like that's the ultimate data point and can use to improve the ads, because the ultimate goal for your business is sales. Therefore, if someone buys, that is you telling Facebook, please look at the person who just bought and essentially use all the data available around that person who bought so that we can go find more people like that.
And once you realize that, your CPA is 700, but you know that Facebook wants anywhere close to 50 conversions a week happening, that 700 Rand is not enough to give Facebook in a given week the conversions that it requires to truly start scaling. It actually means what you need to do is you need to take your 700 and probably multiply it by, because it's 100 Rand a day, you get, let's say, one conversion. And in order for you to get 5 conversions in one day, you actually need to be spending 500 in theory, right? 100 Rand a day, one conversion. So if I spend 500 Rand, I can get 5 conversions. 5 conversions in a week, that's 5 times 7, that's 35, give or take, right? Well, it is 35, but if that means technically I need to be spending 500 at least a day to get anywhere close to making 50 conversions.
Making the algorithm work for you.
Yeah. So a typical case would actually be that you're testing ad set. You may want to start testing that ad set at a 500 Rand a day. If you want to accelerate the scale and grow based off of where you are in the business, and maybe you really need to scale, and that's just where it is. So you are going to have to look at spending probably 5 times more than what your average CPA is, maybe even more though. And the reason I say that is because your CPA gets affected by sometimes things that are out of our control. If there's increased competition, I don't mean competitors, I mean competition for that specific audience, and there's a lot more aggressive advertising for that specific audience, that audience is very competitive, and it drives up the cost to acquire that customer in that audience. So now that affects you. So you calculated, I need 500 Rand a day, but now there's a lot more competition for your audience, and they're the ones driving up the cost. So no, you don't need 500 Rand a day. You probably need 700 Rand a day. So you actually need to account for other variables, and infrequent variables might be if there's an algorithm update that happened, and now your CPA is actually going to be higher in order for you to see the 5 or 6 conversions. Or you might find that you have audience overlap. Your audience overlap, if you're competing against yourself, you're making that audience competitive and you're bidding against yourself, your CPA goes up. This is why it's important to simplify things. There are factors that affect your CPA. So you actually need to also account for some variable. So even though I worked out 500, I might actually need 700. And once you've realized it in that way, you start seeing, whoa, okay, I actually need a bit more budget to be spending if I am to scale at the level of generating 50, 60, 70 conversions at any given week.
Yeah, I also think what's important is that as you scale, you might decrease your ROAS. There's diminishing returns on your ROAS, or maybe even the cost per lead might go up if you are a more traditional business, service-focused business. But what we need to take into account is that we don't bank ROAS, you bank actual tangible money in the bank, rands, right? Dollars. So with that said, your business can still be profitable even if you have a 5x ROAS versus an 8x ROAS. But if you get 1,000 sales on a 5x ROAS, it's much better than getting 10 sales on an 8x ROAS. And I think that's what people don't always understand, because we've had clients in the past who are very anal about the fact that I need a 5x ROAS in order to scale, in order to grow profitably. And then you spend 10,000 Rand a month and you get a 5x ROAS. And then you spend 100,000 Rand a month and you get a 4x ROAS. And they get annoyed and frustrated, thinking that things are going backwards. But meanwhile, they're actually not, because the 10,000 Rand on a 5 or a 6x ROAS is not putting as much money into the bank as the 100,000 Rand on a 3 or a 4x ROAS is. And I think that's what people don't always understand. So they would look at the campaigns, because remember, ROAS is just a measurement of how much money you're spending and how much money you're getting back. But again, that measurement is a health signal. It's not a true reflection of how much money you're putting away in terms of profit into the business. So the health signal might be declining, but this is where you need to understand that when you're starting to reach volume, the amount of profit you're making might be less, percentage-wise. But because you have the volume, you're making more money for the business. This is what wholesale is. So someone goes, no, you know what? I'm not going to be your wholesaler. I'm not going to give you the product at 30% margin because my margins are 60%. But then you go, Brew, we've got 250 stores. So give us the product at a 30% margin and we can literally quadruple your profit overnight. And it's going to be a very stupid business owner that's going to decline that deal, because he's going to be like, wow, geez, you know what? I'm happy to sacrifice the profitability of my product if I know I'm going to put my product in 250 different stores.
That's volume.
Exactly. So it's the same with Facebook too. It's like you're sacrificing ROAS for volume, which is, again, similar to that analogy where you're going to get more sales, which means ultimately you're going to get more money back for the business in profit, even though the percentage margins might be declining.
And that's how we end the show.
Yeah, I suppose there's nothing much more to add. So, dude, thanks for your time again today.
Thanks for having me.
I hope there was some value for those listening and watching.
Me too.
From my side, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Before you leave, if you did find some value in the show, then I want to encourage you to give us a like and a follow. Leave some comments, maybe some feedback. If you have any questions, let us know as well. All right. All the best. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.